Back with me, Jesse Weber, attorney and anchor at Law and Crime Network, Misty Marris, trial attorney, and Caitlin Keating, investigative crime reporter. Jesse, you disagree with me that he's kind of gotten a runaround here? No, the prosecution was a mess. I think we can all agree about that. I think he makes some great, valid points also about the idea of that if information was not shared with the grand jury, exculpatory information, under New Mexico law, he might have a point. The problem is this is coming out after the conviction of Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. He knows it's really bad. There's a lot of bad evidence that came out in that trial against him that can be used. And so I'm not surprised it's coming out now. He's making public arguments. I don't know if they're necessarily legal arguments. What's the evidence that's so bad against him? So first of all, they had an expert testify that the only way the trigger could have, the gun could have gone off is if the trigger was pulled. Let's assume that he says he didn't pull the trigger. Let's assume the trigger was pulled. Let's say he pulled the trigger. Yeah, okay, let's say he pulled the trigger. It becomes a question of why he pulled the trigger. Right, he's an actor on a set. He's been given a gun by someone who's told him that the gun is clear. Experts that we heard from in Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's trial said you never point the gun at anyone else, especially firing the gun. There was a lot of video of him firing a weapon after they called cut, which is a problem. He was a producer of the film. There were known accidental discharges happening on set. There were problems with the armor. That level of knowledge will go in. That's civil. I mean, I don't know. Misty, what do you?
I'm sorry, Jesse. I disagree with you on almost every point. So first of all these arguments in this motion to throw out the indictment are good for trial. They're not great at this stage. That's because while New Mexico does have a law that exculpatory evidence needs to be presented, only direct evidence. So here they're asking for testimony. Jurors can choose to believe, not believe, to take into consideration. Now, let's talk about the trial, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. I actually think Alec Baldwin had quite a few wins. Prosecutors had to walk this tightrope, right, to convict her, but also keep the door open to prosecuting him. And I think in their rebuttal, they made some missteps. They said, it's foreseeable that an actor would misuse a gun. It's foreseeable that an actor would go off script. All of that. Thinking about this case, living and dying foreseeability. Joel Souza's testimony, I didn't even believe I was hit with a bullet. It is so unheard of for a real bullet to be on the set. That says to me, it's not foreseeable that there would be a live round in the gun. Who cares if he pulled the trigger? Doesn't that go against it? If he's going off script, how is that foreseeable? The whole thing was he was going off script a number of times, and it was hard to predict what he was going to be doing. It's expected for him to do it, is the point. And so it would fall on the armorer. And so, he's producer and creative capacity. Well, and let me ask, because during the trial, during the armorer's trial, her team tried to point the finger at Alec Baldwin. This is number 4.
Make no mistake, this is not a prop gun. This is a real gun. Mr. Baldwin pointed it right at him, either had his finger on the trigger and depressed, or pulled it, causing that gun to fire and hit Miss Hutchins. That's the first thing that had to happen. Miss Gutierrez-Reed, you're not going to hear anything about her being in that church or firing that weapon. That was Alec Baldwin.
Caitlin Keating, that argument did not resonate with the jury.
No, it did not. And, you know, I've been on a lot of movie sets before, and I have to tell you, you know, there's the legal case, which is extremely important here. This is everything. And then there's just the public and being so outraged that she would not have died if he didn't pull the trigger. And I think it's way more complicated than that. But on a movie set, you're right. You don't point. There's so many rules. You don't point the gun at someone. There are so many things that I think have come out where people are just outraged that Alec Baldwin would even do that.
Yeah, but I think typically that's civil. I mean, right? I mean, typically it leads to lawsuits. You're charging someone with involuntary manslaughter. It's a really serious case and a really serious charge. And again, I think that a lot of people aren't talking about all of the issues that have led up to, I mean, the fact that the charges were dismissed here and they're bringing them back. And let's be clear, twice. I mean, that's going to be something that his team is going to pick apart. Whether but they won't be able to argue in front of the jury. No, but they'll be able to argue that that gun was malfunctioned. In the idea that, remember, it was might have malfunctioned. It was destroyed by the FBI.
Exactly.
Right. All right, everyone's going to stick around. Still had the